This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. We are here for part 2 of my chat with Matt Chandler. So, guys, we had part 1 earlier this week. We covered a lot of ground, but we cover even more ground in this one. But if you missed the last one, let me just bring you up to speed. Matt Chandler is a preacher, pastor, and author. He has been the senior pastor of the Village Church in Texas since 2002, and he is also the executive director of the board of the Acts 29 Church Network. He's written a lot of different books. My favorite book of his is the Explicit Gospel. It's on our book list of the 100 books every modern Christian man should read list, and he's got a new book out now. So, guys, if you're listening to this on time, you can go and get it right now. It's called The Overcomers, God's Vision for You to Thrive in an Age of Anxiety and Outrage. And if you've listened to my show for any length of time, you know that I love Matt Chandler, you know that I love his sermons, and I've gotten to know him as a person, so I love him even more now. But in this particular part 2, right, so we cover a lot of ground. So we talk about The Overcomers, we talk about the book, we talk about why he uses the book of Revelation as his scaffolding for a book like this, because a lot of people are intimidated by Revelation. They don't understand it. It's just kind of weird to them, so most people just kind of skip it. So it's like, hey, why would you use that for a book like this that you hope to be commercially profitable? But also, I challenged him a little bit because since I've watched every single one of his sermons since 2008, 2009, somewhere around that time, maybe even as far back as 2007, because my buddy Kyle Perkins that I worked with at the time at the University of Central Oklahoma, he's like, you got to listen to this firebrand preacher. He's awesome. So thank you to KP for turning me on to his work. Since I've been listening to him for that length of time, I've been able to kind of look at different eras of his preaching and be like, okay, during this era, he was really focusing on this. And during this era, he really had a heart for this. But I noticed a couple of years ago that there was maybe a little bit of a lull in his sermons, right? They were still good, but there was just kind of a lull. And the way I said it in the interview, it's like I kind of felt like you were mailing it in a little bit. And so we talk about that time period, and I was really kind of blown away by his response and to kind of hear about what he was going through. But also we talk about some of the comments that he's made that have really struck people the wrong way as it pertains to race. Specifically, we talk about the presentation, the sermon that he gave at MLK 50, which one thing that he told me personally before we got onto the interview is like, of all the sermons that he wished he could take back or to go back and edit and then do it again, it would be that one. And so on that subject in particular, I know a lot of people have expressed like, oh, Matt Chandler's gone off the deep end, woke on the race stuff and things like that. And I've expressed those concerns on my show as well at different points. But we can't just spend the entire time talking about that one subject matter. We had other things that we needed to talk about, but we'll talk about it more later at a later date or something like that. So we were able to dig in, but we were on limited time, so we couldn't just like spend the entire time on that. So if you're freaking out, just relax. But also we talked about men's ministry and kind of what that looks like. Hey, what's the difference between like a man-friendly church and just doing men's ministry? But then at the very, very end of this, so you'll want to make sure that you stick around to the end, I asked him about my favorite Matt Chandler moment. And that is when he literally burned down Steven Furtick's church around him while he was speaking at Steven Furtick's church with Steven Furtick sitting right there. And just, it's the most amazing moment, maybe in the history of sermons that I've ever watched, just considering the context and just hearing Matt kind of talk about what was going on and a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff. It was just really, really funny, really entertaining. So I'm very excited for him to bring that to you guys. So guys, part 2. Get excited, buckle up, and without further ado, let's get into it. All these things are kind of weaving around the same drain of you have to be in community, you have to submit yourself to authority and accountability of the men that are around you. Need to be able to build all those things. And what all that stuff leads to is what I talk about all the time, which is resilience. Yeah. I don't care about strength because strength wanes over time. It fades. It comes in and out. But resilience is one of those things that I think is lacking in total. And so that's why I'm so excited for the new book, The Overcomers, is because this is not a guidebook for how to be a resilient human being. This takes an exact sliver of the fight that we are all called to fight, and it gives us some ideas and some tools to how we can engage in that fight, if I were to summarize. But I do want to read what the definition of an overcomer is from your book, and then I kind of want to know, hey, why even write this book? Sure. Why a time such as this? That type of thing. So this is the definition that you have in the book of an overcomer. This is a believer propelled by scriptural truths, empowered by the work of Jesus, and encouraged by those who have gone before them, with open eyes to deeper spiritual realities, and one who overcomes endures the brokenness of the world with holy resolve. This individual, marked by love and through the power of the Holy Spirit, joins in God's offensive against darkness and destruction. The overcomer unites with the triune God and his holy church to stand as an unwavering, unanxious presence. Bluntly put, the overcomer is a major problem to the enemy.
Yep.
That last part there, because you got the push back darkness thing there in the middle,
yeah.
so you're speaking my language because I'm here to equip men to push back darkness. But bluntly, an overcomer is a problem for the enemy, which means they become a lightning rod for the enemy as well, and they're going to direct a lot of his attention. But let's talk about the overcomers. Why this book?
Yeah.
Why now? What can people expect to get out of it?
Yeah, so there was something that's been boiling up in me for years. Well, coming back from COVID, everything's opening back up. We start kind of doing what we do again. And in Texas, COVID was over way before it was in a lot of other states. And what I noticed at the Village was that it looked like we didn't come fully back. Like we were shell-shocked in a way by what happened in 20 and into 21. And for me, the chaos is opportunity. The dysfunction is what we're called to run into. But it seemed like we didn't want to get canceled. We didn't want to get labeled a certain way.
Right.
We didn't want to be labeled as a bigot and so there were two things I was seeing broadly even in evangelicalism and then even in the church that I pastor, where there was some acquiescence to the culture or there was just silence. There was just silence. And in my bones, I know like this is our moment. Like this is ours. Like nobody's coming to bail us out. Like nobody's coming to fix this. We're God's big plan and he's not wrong.
It's not another team coming through the locker room.
There's not. There's no superstar about to show up and deliver us. I mean, and then even I've wondered, like sometimes I'll say, hey, C.S. Lewis isn't coming, but I wonder, could C.S. Lewis navigate this? This world would be so strange to him. Yep. Now, I hope the Lord doesn't do anything to me for saying that, but like G.K. Chesterton isn't coming to critique the political arena right now. We're here. And that's by God's design. Psalm 139, you've been uniquely designed by God. Like you're being fearfully, wonderfully made. That's not a text for women's ministry. I understand why they use it, but God's saying in that, no, I did this. I'm like your freaking genetic makeup. I was all in that. We know how babies are made. We know God's not, knitting. No, that's poetry to describe a biological reality. And that means God knowing the days that he had for you. That's in the text. Put you together for those days. That means there's two things in view in that passage. There's your unformed substance. Well, what's that? That's my personality type. That's whether I'm fight or flight. That's how God wove me together in my mother's womb. But it's also my physical form. Like God did this. I'm 6'5". I'm loud. My vocal folds, they don't give. I mean, they just don't.
Why are you flexing?
Give. I'm sorry.
You did
that.
A soft
you did
spot.
that. I'm a 4-stripe purple belt.
I have a huge
I know. I see it.
Because I have a weak voice. You don't have to flex.
It's fine.
Okay, get back into your answer.
And like it's like God built me for this.
Right.
He built you. I don't care where you friggin' are. He built you for this. And then you go up to Acts 17. Where the Apostle Paul's in Athens, and he's saying, like, look, the times of your being and the boundaries of your habitation, like God's in that. And why is he in it? So that men might seek him and find him, though he's not far from any of us. Now put those together. Uniquely wired, uniquely placed. Then bump on up to Corinthians, and Paul's going, the Holy Spirit has uniquely gifted you according to the grace of God. Like, so now I'm uniquely wired, I'm uniquely placed, I'm uniquely gifted for when? Now. Right now. And so that's what was burning in me at that time. Guys, we can't shrink back. This is our moment. We can't acquiesce. It's been given to us to be the prophetic voice that both speaks to power and lives out the truth, beauty, and goodness of Christ. But if we're afraid, we won't do it. Right. We won't do it. And so that's the framework that I started coming at here. And then just by the grace of God, I was out at my river cabin. All this is bubbling up in me. I'm walking around. I got rebuked by the Lord for some stuff that was going on in my own life. And then I'm in Revelation at about 6 a.m. reading. And then it just like opened up to me. I was like, holy cow, this is it. And then came back and told my crew, hey, I'm preaching through Revelation. And they're like, you're going to do what? I was like, I'm preaching through Revelation. Like, what? Well, we're going to do Romans and men's and women's Bible study. Why don't you air war Romans? And I was like, love Romans, Mount Everest of books of the Bible. but man, I'm provoked and I need to follow the provoking of the Spirit, and then preached through Revelation at the Village. And I just watched us wake up. I mean, I felt like I was in something. Like, this is a funny story. Like, what God was doing while I was preaching that, I don't know that I've ever, maybe I felt that one more time my whole life when I was preaching through Ecclesiastes a billion years ago. And like, what God was doing at TBC was so profound that there was a weekend where someone else on our staff was scheduled to preach, and he walked up and he's like, not a chance I'm taking that weekend, bro. It looks like you're pitching a no-hitter and I'm not about to step in there. So I'll do it if you want, but I think the Holy Spirit's telling me, you do it. And I could feel he was right. He's one of my guys. And I was like, I hear you, Trevor. I got it. And then it resonated outside of TBC. I don't think, like, unlike anything I've ever preached. I mean, like, I think it's like 3 million views or something right now.
Wow.
And so then I was actually working on a different book, and a good friend of mine called and just said, hey, I don't know what you're working on, but you take this Revelation series and you frame it up and you tee it up and go. And The Overcomers was born. And It's been a 3-year journey to make it happen, but here we are.
One, there's a lot of similarities just from the scaffolding standpoint of Take Heart and The Overcomers, because it's like preparing someone for a time as this. It's
That's
like,
right.
look, someone leaving a mean comment on your Instagram because you posted a picture with scripture on it. That's not the same as someone that's under actual persecution that could lose their top knot.
We're annoying.
Right.
That's what we are to culture right now. We're like something they've got to try to get past to get to the utopia that it will not be waiting for them. And that's okay. I mean, we're salt and light. We have a preserving effect. We are a nuisance.
Right.
And we should continue to be a nuisance until the light drives out darkness.
Right. A polite nuisance, but also a
For
nuisance
sure.
that's there from the beginning. I will say this, as I was reading through the book, because, guys, you just have to get the book. It will be in the show notes so you guys can check it out for yourself. But I think something that's apparent with the modern day church is that we don't actually have a love for the word. Like, I kind of had this revelation about a year ago. I was like, I don't think Christians that are in these churches actually think the Bible is the word of God.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. Because if they actually believed that it was God-breathed and inerrant and all the things, right, we would probably read it.
Yeah.
And beyond reading it, we might actually study it.
Yeah.
And we might be under the tutelage of other people that have more time in their schedule to study it. But I just don't think that we believe that, which leads to, I guess, the shocking question, which you've kind of addressed already, which is like, so to unpack that overall idea in The Overcomers, you use Revelation.
Yeah.
Which is scary and weird, and it freaks people out. And like, I sit under Dr. Mark Hitchcock at the Faith Bible Church in Edmond, Oklahoma. So he's done a lot of work on Revelation and on end times prophecy. So he's loving everything going on in the Middle East right now, because it's like, I've been preparing my whole life for this moment. But it's like, you could have gotten your revelation when you were out, kicking it in the sticks, and you got your revelation through Revelation, but let's do something else.
Yeah.
Like, let's preach something else. Let's go somewhere else. So why take a book, which some people would say is, hey, I can wrap my head around the concept. Let's go ahead and read that.
Yeah.
And then use Revelation as your roadmap.
Listen, if you're a man, oh my gosh, Revelation, it's war and victory and being in the fight and a clear picture of the enemy and how the enemy functions and what his schemes are and how he launches his best stuff at you. And like, you want to know that. And then the message of Revelation over and over and over and over and over and over and over again is King Jesus enthroned, the lion lamb, and his victory given to us. This isn't sweet 6-pound, 8-ounce baby Jesus. This is sword out of the mouth, tattoo on the thigh. He's given everyone opportunity to repent and come to him. And now his victory, his final victory, is going to roll across the earth. And I think, here's what's wild. The book of Revelation has been given to the church to encourage her. I mean,
Not scare us.
And for 2,000 years, that's what it did. And about 150 years ago, we got a little janky with some stuff and started taking the newspaper and trying to understand Revelation with the newspaper. But gosh, in the first 5 verses, he tells you what the book is. And it's a letter. I mean, he says to the 7 churches of Asia Minor, it's a letter,
Right.
Which means it was written for us, but it wasn't written to us, which means it cannot mean to us what it did not mean to them. So you can't tell me the Apache helicopter is the locust that come out of the bowl. You can't do it because no one, I mean, so there's there's a group that would see Revelation as only mattering to the last generation before Christ's return. Why does he give it to John in 96 AD if it's only going to help the people the last 20 years?
Would they make the same argument about Ephesians? Well, it's like, well, this was meant for the church in Ephesus, not for us. Like, they certainly wouldn't make that argument.
No, you can't. And it's bad hermeneutics. And so this book, Revelation, has done more to put steel in the spine of Christians across all sorts of different weathers. I mean, 96 AD, they're on the end of a 30-year brutal persecution, and each successive emperor made it worse, not better. Yep. I mean, they saw Paul killed, Timothy killed, drug out in the street and killed, beheaded, murdered upside down. John boiled alive and survived it. They're like, oh crap, and just put him on Patmos because it wigged him out. I mean, the church had just loss after loss after loss. And the apocalyptic part of Revelation, all apocalypse means is unveiling. I'm going to pull back the veil and show you what's actually going on, because things are not what they seem. And when he pulls back the veil, Christ is on his throne, and all creation is moving towards him in surrender. And his vanquishing of all of them is complete. And there's going to be that made visible one day, but the reality is present right now, and that victory is available to anybody listening to us talk.
Hey guys, real quick. Here recently, I went on a hunting trip with a group of guys, and one of the guys had lost 50 pounds on the carnivore diet. And some of you guys don't need to lose a bunch of weight, but you're trying to maximize your overall health. And a lot of you are experimenting like me with the carnivore diet. But the problem is you don't have a cattle operation that you can trust to get you high quality beef. And that's why I want to introduce you to my friends, the official beef delivery partner of Undaunted.Life, Primal Beef. Primal Beef is a cattle operation owned and operated by Sean Glass. He's a retired Navy SEAL that has partnered with Jocko Willing to launch Primal Beef. So what makes Primal Beef different from other fly-by-night beef delivery companies? It's a combo of the following. All American Black Angus cattle. The beef comes from one farm. That's one farm in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. The beef is all natural, no hormones ever, no mRNA ever, and no vaccines ever. And after slaughter, the beef is actually dry aged and then hand cut by artisan butchers and then flash frozen to ensure that it maintains tenderness, marbling, and flavor. And here's another really cool thing. For every box sold, Primal Beef donates meat directly to a member of America's Special Operations Forces through the C4 Foundation. So you can take pride in knowing that your purchase will help literally put food on the table for America's finest warriors. Stave off veganism and try Primal Beef out today by going to www.primalbeef.com. That's primalbeef.com. Use the promo code Kyle to get 10% off of your first order. The great thing about that promo code is you can use it and stack it on other deals as well. Again, that's primalbeef.com. Promo code Kyle, that's Kyle, to get 10% off your order. Amen and amen to all that. Having read the book, what the book did for me is, this wasn't the point of the book, but it helped me to unravel some of the parts of Revelation that have been very confusing for me. But you were using that as a way to explain the overall idea that you wanted to come out with the overcomers, which you talked about a little bit earlier. But there are certain things in scripture that people are like, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Crap. I don't really understand this. This is kind of weird. And then it's like, when Jesus, we love, sweet Jesus. We love Lamb of God. We love, this somehow Danish looking guy that's very, very beautiful that likes to kiss women on the tips of their noses and say how cute they look in their tunics. But like the fiery eyes and the many crowns on the head and the robe dipped in blood. Is that the blood of his enemies? Is that the blood from the cross? We don't know. Yeah. But it's just one of those things that kind of freaks us out. But it did help me kind of wrap my mind around some of the churches and the messaging and all that, and all that's fine. But there were a couple of quotes from the book that they're haunting in a way. Yeah. And I feel like could be its own book. So maybe The Overcomers 2 needs to be a thing. But let me read these quotes here. They're both short. One is, we live in a day where tolerance is viewed as supreme, yet the Bible doesn't exalt tolerance as a value in the church.
Ever.
And a little bit later, I don't know if this was your quote or if you were quoting somebody else. I can't remember, but it's, the church in the West. This was someone else's quote. The church in the West is under some sort of satanic lullaby. Yeah. And so reading those are in 2 completely different parts of the book, but I think it comes back to this thing that what Vodi Bakum calls, the 11th commandment, thou shalt be nice. Yeah. Right. And I feel like part of the satanic lullaby is, if I'm tolerant to a culture that hates me and would hate me regardless of the way I acted just because I checked the box as Team Jesus. If I'm tolerant, then maybe they'll give me what John Cooper calls my woke cookies. Maybe they'll pat me on the head and say, you're not so bad. It's kind of like what we see in the political sphere. It's like, okay, if we put a moderate Republican in there, maybe they won't hate them. It's like, no. Whoever the Republicans pick will be Hitler, right? Yeah. Whether it's Trump or DeSantis or Nikki Haley, they are Hitler somehow. It's just kind of baked into the cake, but we'll back out of the political sphere a little bit. But this is one of the things that I think is killing the church in the West. Eric Metaxas has talked about it a lot in his letter to the American church. He talks, he goes back to the time of Bonhoeffer and how he was talking about the German church, how there was a split of people that supported the rise of the Nazi Party and thus the Third Reich, and people that were anti the rise of the Nazi Party. And if just a few thousand pastors in Germany
that wild
flipped over to team anti-Nazi, there is no Holocaust, there is no World War II. Adolf Hitler is not a name that we know. We might have dogs walking around named Adolf. You can't name a dog Adolf right now. Can't. But it only took a few more men of courage, in terms of the population of the world. It only took a little percentage to flip the other way. I feel like the church is abdicating its responsibility to speak truth into culture and to push back against darkness because we just want to be seen as this tolerant, go along to get along. I want to be known for what I'm for, not what I'm against type of people.
Well, the thing that's fascinating about the letters to the churches, especially the line I'm referencing there, is he says, you tolerate that woman Jezebel. It's not that Jezebel's teaching. It's like you've tolerated her. You have not spoken out against. You have not made sure that this isn't happening, that the sin that you're guilty of that's going to, if you don't stop, if you don't turn and overcome it, is the tolerance of this woman's teaching. In fact, what's interesting to note is, the writer of Ecclesiastes is on it. There's nothing new under the sun. Like, go read the letters to the churches. It's the same stuff we're dealing with right now. It's sexual perversion. We're
not unique.
We're not unique. This is not even a unique moment in history.
We think it is because we have technology.
That's
but
right.
It's the same.
But it's certainly not. It's like Satan isn't that creative. It's the same script laid across a technological revolution. That's all that's happening here. Same ideologies, same sacrifice your babies to Moloch, same. It's all the same. And so what's new, though, in this is this idea, and maybe this isn't even new, that if we're just nice enough people, and I'm for, like, we should be about truth, beauty, and goodness. Right. And I loved Sam Allberry at the conference where he said behind every prohibition in the scripture is the love of God and something beautiful.
Sure, he's not keeping something from you.
No, absolutely. He's giving you something when he says thou shalt not. He's not like, it's not going to glorify God for us to just begrudgingly be miserable people. He's trying to hand you, this God who is love, is trying to hand you true love, true beauty, true goodness, instead of the idol that you're trying to put in its place. And so as the people of God, our role is to say, no, this is true. This is right. This is good. This is beautiful, because God is trying to bring us into the fullness of his creative design for his own glory. And so to just be tolerant of an idea that's actually taking people away from in the hopes that they come to is, man, it's Russian roulette. It's not even Russian roulette. It's just putting a gun to your head.
I think you're absolutely right. And in addition to that, you have to get down to bedrock. We love to do univariate analysis. We love to go one level deep, and then we're going to put our stake in the ground, and this is our position. But nothing in this world is that simple. No. Like, you have to go multiple levels deep. So what I would ask to somebody who's one of those go along to get along, I want to be known for what I'm for, not what I'm against Christians, one of those types of people, I like going straight for the jugular from the beginning. And I'll say, what is the reasonable middle position on abortion?
Yeah.
And then I just sit there quietly. Because it's like, okay, on one side, we have abortion for any reason at any point of pregnancy and paid for by taxpayer dollars. And on the other side, we have no. Yeah. What's the reasonable middle there? What's the reasonable middle for an 8-year-old that thinks that they are born in the wrong body? Is the reasonable middle that we only cut off part of the skin of their arm and sew it into some sort of phallic-like thing and then sew it on the top of their crotch so they feel better when they wear boys' underwear? Is that where we're going? With most of these things, there is no middle ground. And so when we vacillate And when we cede ground, we are ceding ground to the enemy that loves it when we're like, well, I don't really know how to argue against this, so let's just go ahead and put it at this many weeks, or let's put it in this particular area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or just, and I think the thing that's most common is just silence.
Oh, yeah.
So I think most evangelicals, rather than abdicating, just stay quiet.
Mm-hmm.
They just stay quiet.
We're going to be about the gospel, which is code for, I don't want to get into this because it seems icky. It's the same thing whenever Christians are like, you know what, we're just going to be about the gospel. We're not going to get into politics. And then I'm a questioner. That's from my sales background. I'm like, okay, so are you okay with only atheists running the government?
Yeah.
Are you okay with only atheists running the school board?
Well, again, and read Revelation. I mean, it's a political manifesto.
Right.
It is to say Jesus is Lord is to say Caesar is not. And Domitian, who is the emperor, literally demanded that he be called Lord.
Right.
So when you say, anytime you see Jesus, and it's funny, like Paul's gospel and Jesus's gospel, it's never, hey, let's get out of here and get to glory. It's the kingdom of God has come to bear on the earth. The kingdom of God is here. And so what's interesting in the political arena right now is it seems the right wants Jesus as king, but doesn't want the kingdom, right? They don't care much for the immigrant or the poor, or there's more like, friggin' get over it. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. But then the left, they want the kingdom, but will not have Jesus as king.
Right.
And so this is the mess that we're in. But what we're called to is king and kingdom, the king and the kingdom. So that Jesus reigns. Jesus's commands are commands. They're not suggestions, they're commands. But we also very much need to be about the work of the kingdom, which is the poor and the downtrodden and the blind and the oppressed and it's hard for people to marry these two, so they tend to choose. Progressives tend to choose the kingdom, but a real soft if he's king at all.
Right.
Like, you know, Jesus is the king that makes suggestions, and if you're interested or you want to, or it makes sense to you. And then the right is, no, Jesus is king. He said what he said. I'm just not going to do some of the stuff that he said. And so it's a hard time to try to find that space of king and kingdom and live into it boldly.
Yeah, we all have our own flavor of disobedience. We all get to choose our own flavor, but there's a whole lot more to talk about with the overcomers, but there's some other things I want to get to. I will say to the audience that's looking to get into a book like this, again, it's in the show notes. I think that this book works really well. And I don't know if there's any small group material, but I think this works really well as a chapter by chapter, hey, study this in a group. So if you're like me and you got a group of guys out there and you're looking for that next book to read, I think this is going to be helpful. Certainly if you're in like kind of a mixed like couples home group thing, whatever you called it at your church, I think this is something that you can easily work through, guys. It is there in the show notes. Now, I've been wanting to ask you this next thing for a while before I ever knew that we were going to, go from being like strangers to buddies in 5 minutes. But I've told you this before. I've listened, so shout out to Kyle Perkins. That's, one of my best friends from college. He told me like in 2007, he's like, hey, there's this like crazy guy that yells all the time. And I know you listen to podcasts.
Sometimes I back up, so you have to turn it up.
Right. Yeah. Guys, you can't listen to Matt. If you haven't listened to him, you can't listen to him going down the highway. It's way too frustrating because it's yelling and then whispering, mainly yelling, but you really have to, deal with the knob quite a bit. But this is like just when podcasts were getting going. And like, I was listening to like Art of Manliness and like one other podcast. He's like, you got to listen to Matt Chandler sermons. So I've listened to legitimately every single sermon that you have delivered from the TVC stage from 2007 until this weekend, this last weekend, okay? And anytime you have anybody else come, I just skip it. I was like, I'm not, no.
I'm telling you, they can go.
No, forget about it. I don't care. I don't listen. That's not their podcast. This is Matt Chandler's podcast because like it's going to take me at least 15 minutes to determine if they're a turd or not. And so it's like, what if
I don't put turds up there, Kyle?
You never know.
I do. I'm telling you, I don't put turds up there.
Maybe you're broken. Who knows? Like maybe you don't know every time, but like, so I've listened to everything. So the interesting thing is my wife has known me since August the 6th of 2005. She's been around me essentially every day since then. So she can notice things in me that I don't notice in me because she's just been around me for that length of time. And she can look back over these 20-ish years and be like, okay, this is how he's changed, gotten better, gotten worse. And so I've been able to, since I just check in with you once a week-ish or 45 times a year, I can kind of see some different things happening and you going in certain directions and having certain styles over the years that maybe you didn't notice.
Yeah.
So I want to throw this out there to you. And we did this
Okay.
a little bit over breakfast, but I can't tell you exactly when it was. Let's say it was 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
I sensed that you were mailing it in a little bit.
Okay.
I sensed that you had gotten a little bit comfortable, and it wasn't the volume
Yeah.
that got different. It was just the fervor. It was the fire. And I was like, something's going on here. Maybe he's not really into this material. Maybe he picked this, this study and then he regrets it now, but they already created the graphics. And so we just got to go forward with it. And then I felt like you came out of that, and you didn't just come out of that subtly. It was like you came out of that on a chariot that was on fire. And it was like you were here, you kind of went down and you chilled out, and then you just hockey sticked there for a little bit. So I guess the first question is, am I crazy? Did you notice that, or is this the first time you're hearing it?
No. I don't know that I've even talked about this stuff publicly. So 2015 for me, probably one of the tougher years.
Right.
Life, not ministry, life. Man, we just really screwed up on a care case. Really screwed up. I think I felt embarrassed, felt like I failed. And what sucks about failing when you're a pastor is failing when you're a pastor means people that you were given care of got hurt.
Right.
And some got hurt bad.
Yeah.
And so I was finishing a James series and felt like it was the first time I'd been in the news for something that was not good. And that's happened plenty since then. But I think I got an 8-year reprieve because I had brain cancer.
Okay.
I think for like 8 years, they're like, man, that guy had brain cancer. Leave him alone. He might die. Leave him alone. And man, I think we owned that like we should have. We worked to reconcile like we should have. And I just think something happened to me that year. And then there were some things going on at home in that 3 or 4 years that were really difficult and nothing for me to ever share publicly. It's not my story. And it was heartbreaking and exhausting. And I felt like I was in this 4 or 5 years of just clinging to Jesus for dear life. And then I didn't want to hurt people like I had. I felt afraid of my prophetic edge. And then I was out at our river cabin, and I was just on a walk with the Lord, man. Once a quarter I get out there for 4 days, usually 3-4 days. And I just fast and pray and just go for walks with Jesus and go. Sometimes it's awful. I'm just stuck in my head the whole time. And sometimes Jesus is just waiting for me when I get out of my truck there. And I was on a walk with the Lord and felt like the Lord, it didn't feel like a rebuke, man. It didn't. It just felt like it felt kind. It felt fatherly. I felt the Lord just go, hey, do you want to be done? You want to be done? And not like, do I want to resign or do I want to retire? It like he was giving me permission if I wanted to just stay in, probably for me, what was second gear. And just, do you want to just stay in second gear? And listen, we'll finish this up and you'll be one of the best preachers of your day. And you'll be, you'll be great. It'll be awesome. And I just felt everything in me go, oh, I ain't done. And then came the rebuke. And the Lord was like, then I'm going to need you to lead again. I'm going to need you to stop abdicating stuff. I'm going to need you to be the guy I'm asking you to be. And then I just threw a lot of tears and snot, repented, and I wrote a letter to Josh Patterson first. That's my guy. And I just said, I need these 6 things to change immediately, or I've got to go. I've got to go build this that I feel's in my heart. And to me, that was my fleece. I think the Lord had given me permission. That was my fleece. And so I sent it to Josh. And if Josh was like, I don't see it, then I just in my heart gone, then my time at the village is over.
Wow.
And I'm going to go do whatever the Lord has for me next. But this is done. This chapter's over.
Yeah.
And so I sent that to Josh, and Josh said, not only are these 6 true, but I'd add these 2. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, those 2.
Okay.
And then gave that letter to the elders. And the elders were like, run, Matt, run. And then I just felt like I didn't go from 2nd to 3rd. I went from 2nd to 5th. And I just felt alive in the work again, man. So no, you're on it. It was a long, hard season for multiple reasons. The 2015 stuff, the stuff that we were dealing with at home, that again, is nobody's business. I've got one person in my family. It's their story. It's never going to be my story to tell. And it was some of the most heartbreaking, disorienting, dark seasons of our lives. And we just didn't see it coming. And so I was just stuck, man. I was just stuck in it. And the Lord was kind to just let me be stuck and let me cling to him and let me downshift. And then he circled back around. He's like, okay, we're good. You're good. Let's go. And then, man, I have just felt, gosh, the last 4 years, I felt so alive in the work. I felt so alive. I mean, I just feel like I'm constantly just humming with energy for the kingdom.
So you mentioned that this is kind of the first time you've talked about it publicly. Like, why not talk about it more? Why share now?
Yeah, I don't know, except that I feel like distance creates clarity.
So you can see kind of maybe why you were going
through I
didn't
know I was in second gear.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea I was in second gear. I had no idea I was in second gear. I didn't know I was off. I didn't. I swear I didn't. I didn't feel off. I felt like I was giving all I had. And I think what I had in that season was just less. And I couldn't see it. And nobody was telling me it was happening. And maybe Lauren sensed it a little bit, but man, she was in it with me. She was in it with me.
Wow.
And it's in that season that other hits came and other public things were happening and it was just like 5 years of wave after wave after wave. And man, we were just trying to survive. We were just clinging to each other, clinging to our crew and trying to make it. And then the Lord was like, okay, we're good. Let's go.
Well, it almost sounds like, there's a difference between giving 100% of second gear and giving 100%. Yeah. And so it seems like you had kind of gotten lulled to sleep because you were, you were redlining, but you were in second gear and you thought you were flying and you just weren't. You were just flat out in second gear.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So, okay. So with that in mind, you're talking to a decent sized audience and there's guys that are there are pastors in our audience, certainly, but there are guys that just feel like maybe they're there. Maybe something got dislodged for them in their heart or their brain or their soul or whatever in this whole arena. And they're like, oh man, I've been in second gear with my family. I've been in second gear with my business. I've been in second gear with my calling because again, people think you're called to ministry. You just do a job. No, there are people that are building businesses to the glory of God or working in a cubicle to the glory of God because that is where they were placed at a particular time for a particular purpose. But maybe talk to that person that's in the audience right now that's felt like, oh my gosh, I've been stuck. I've been in second gear and it's not really going well for me. I guess what would your advice be to them?
So my experience, that's what I've got to go off of, is the recognition of that's what's happening is a divine mercy. Like you can only see what you can see, man. You can only see what you can see. And so for me, I needed the Lord to kind of help me see, hey, you're in second, bro. And here's what was crazy about that moment. Like I said, until then I'm going to need you to, it sounded like he was like giving me the choice to stay there.
Which that's weird in and of itself.
I agree. I don't know how to make theological sense of that, but it was just, to me, it was as clear as I think I've ever experienced the Lord. Just there was such compassion. Like he knew it had been hard. He knew I was worn out. He knew, and then he knew, no, I've got something for you. I'm going to give it to you, but you've got to tell me you want it. You got to tell me you want it because it ain't like the arrows have stopped flying. It ain't like the harsh critique or even some of the struggles that have been around my house. It's not like everything's, and I ain't living no Mary Poppins life.
Yeah. And
he wanted to know if I wanted back in the fight before I knew I didn't know I was out of it. And so, man, like right now you're listening to Kyle and I talk and you're like, oh crap, that's me. Well, praise God. That's the mercy of God. That's like picking up your face going, hey man, I get it. You want to run? You want to get back in the invitation, I think, is the awareness because nobody wants to be in second gear.
No.
Nobody wants to be in second gear. And so if you're being quickened or awakened to the fact you are, then I think what happened to me is probably happening to you right now. There's an invitation from God to go, hey, how about I'll give you some gears, but you've got to move towards me. You've got to, man, I had to write a letter. I had to write myself clear. What's happened to me? What needs to change? And then is this organization that I've been building in second gear ready for me to come back in fifth? Can it do that? Can it survive that? And God gave me the path forward. And the path forward for me was my guy. I mean, my Jonathan, the lover of my soul, the guy that I've been doing this with for 20 years, not 20 years at the time, 20 years now. Does he see this? And is he willing to run up that hill, and maybe God will give the Philistines into our hands? Will he do that? And I wrote the letter with a great deal of vulnerability. And to me, that was the fleece. That was the first shift, to write the letter, to take the risk of either rejection or what am I going to do to support my family if I have to walk here? Because it was clear to me. It was clear. I've got to go here. And if I can't go here, then I'm going here somewhere else. So I'm putting my life in your hands. And that was shift to third gear. And then the meeting with Josh, okay, now we're in fourth gear. And then the meeting with the elders, now we're in fifth gear. And I've got my elders going, run, we're with you. And now I'm back at it. But at any point there, the Lord could have gone, yeah, we're going to get to fifth. We're going to get to fifth way over here. We're going to have to start a whole new thing to get to fifth again. But that's not what he had for me. And so if somebody's like, oh God, I'm in second, then okay, what's the next step? Is the step going to your wife and going, man, I've been mailing it in. I don't want to mail it in. Here's what I'm doing tonight. I'm putting the kids to bed. You know what? I've been mailing it in. Here's what we're doing. You and I are going on a date, and I know we hardly have any money to do that. So it's just going to be Taco Bell, but it's you and me, with 69-cent burritos. Because I have been mailing it in, babe, and I don't want to mail it in anymore. I want to pursue you. I want to cultivate your soul. I want to love you like Christ loves the church. It could be wherever it's manifesting itself. We lean into the rebuke. We lean into what God makes us aware of. And I think this is true. If you're in first gear or third gear or fourth gear, wherever you are, gosh, you could be in fifth and the Lord could be going, hey, we need to throttle back a little bit here. And it's like, great, where do I lean in? Where do I say yes? You might be in fifth and about to blow. And so the rebuke for you might be, hey man, you're running in fifth, and you running in fifth is causing some pretty significant damage to your family. You running in fifth is stopping you from becoming the 3 a.m. friend. It's stopping you from cultivating that king's table. So brother, you need to downshift so I can get you ready for what I've got coming for you. So I just think wherever the Spirit is revealing to you, wherever you're having that conversation with the Lord, for me, it was compassion and then invitation. But for you, it might be a smack to the bottom and get out of fifth.
Right.
I'm just saying, brothers, you heed the prompting of the Spirit, whether he's showing you that from the Word or he's showing you that through a rebuke from a friend, or I think that's the sauce. That's the secret stuff. To just have the courage to go, I don't know how this ends, but I'm taking my first step towards you.
Well, I think in addition to that, Matt, it's a call to downshift from what you were talking about earlier, the morally neutral, lesser love.
Yeah.
So maybe you're in fifth gear in jiu-jitsu, but you're stuck in first gear with your wife and first gear with your kids or something like that. So that's getting into priorities, which is not necessarily where I want to go with that. But even stepping back even a step further from everything that you've mentioned, you put yourself in a place where you decrease the level of noise from the world, where you could actually hear the prompting of the Holy Spirit.
Got to have it.
So I'm the worst at this. Sure. Every waking moment, I've got my AirPods on me. They're right behind me. I know where they're always at, because if I'm sitting at a stoplight and it's one of those stoplights that takes 3 minutes to turn green, that's 6 minutes of podcasting, baby, because 2 times speed. But at the same time, I'm choking out silence, which is when I can hear the Holy Spirit most clearly. Because sometimes people are like, God's not talking to me. It's like, is it loud where you're at? Yeah. Because he might be talking in a normal voice. Yeah. And you can't hear him. And do you want him to yell at you? Yeah. I don't want him to yell at me. I'd rather be able to hear him. And so that's part of it as well. And when you do that, and it sounds like this is what you did, with Lauren and then with Josh and then with the rest of the elders and all that, is you were able to do a little bit of an after action report on that period of your life and realize, because you can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking backwards. And you're like, wait a minute, this just wasn't a bad thing that happened that turned into a bad season. And this just wasn't a this. And I wasn't just tired and I wasn't just exhausted. And you can, from a more theologically astute position, look back on this particular time period and be able to define the issues that got you there in the first place by being able to do that after action report. And one thing that I noticed as well, and we talked about this a little bit, is some of the same topics that you had been talking about for all these years. Your tone changed on some of these topics, which may or may not have something to do with that time period, perhaps. But specifically the one, and you've gotten a lot of crap because you're a prominent pastor, but one of the things you got the most crap for is where it seemed like you went from the racial reconciliation talk to racial grievance.
Yeah.
And the number one example of that people love to use and use it as, example in Exhibit A is your MOK 50 sermon that you delivered. And the thing about that sermon is I had questions about it, but I forget if it was earlier this week or the last time we did dinner or something like that. You said a statement that frankly shocked me. You said, if I could take back one sermon that I've given in my entire life, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands of sermons, you said that one would be the one that you would take back.
Well, I think I would tweak it. I think I said some things in it that I regret, and I said some things in it that I still very much believe and stand by. And so there are probably one part of that sermon in particular that I was like, dang it, I think that's off. I think I wish I could have that back.
Which part?
So I think specifically the idea of hiring a black 8 over a white 10 or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact numbers. I know I said a black 8 because the black friends that I have is like, oh, black 8, we're black 8s or something like that. Yeah. I got, they weren't capping on me for that. They were kind of just poking at me a little bit for that. And so that's the piece I really hated about that sermon. That's the one I want back. But overall, the sermon, or the idea behind the sermon, like what makes us not be able to see, I still very much believe in most of what's in that sermon. There are just pieces of it. I think I overspoke or spoke ignorantly or couldn't see as clearly as maybe I feel like I see now.
Okay, so let's take that chunk specifically, because that's the chunk that everybody clips, right? You spoke for 50 minutes and people take this 2-minute thing where you talked about, the Anglo 8 and the Black 7 or something like that, and everyone took it to a different degree. If you could have that back and take that chunk out and edit it, what would you say to get across the point that you right now to this day actually believe in and stand by?
Yeah, I want God's man or God's woman for the spot. And I think that's based on calling, that's based on competency, that's based on character, that's based on it can't be based on the color of skin, or I'm part of the same problem I'm trying to fix.
Right.
One of the things I argue about in the book is the temptation we have in fighting even the enemy. And the work of the enemy sometimes is to pick up the weapons of the enemy to try to fight the enemies with.
Right.
And then you're guilty of the very thing you're trying to eradicate.
Right.
And I think that's what I did. I was using the enemy's tools against the enemy and joined him. And yeah, that's I think I believe in meritocracy. I really do. I really do believe that's right. Now, the reality is that there are plenty of black 10s, and man, if I can hire black 10s and Latino 10s and Indian 10s, I want to do that. I want the best man or woman who's got the right character, calling, competency, and I would add chemistry to our team. I want that person running with me. I want them in the trench with me. I want them in, and if they're brown, praise God. And if they're white, praise God. If they're yellow, praise God. I just want the right men and women in the trench with me. And that's where I misstepped pretty hard there.
When it's easy to oppose, it's really hard to propose. And so when someone's like, I oppose what he said right there, got it, I'm with you. What would you propose that he said? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm mad. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. I'm mad about it. And the thing is as a content creator, which technically we're both that, we're other things, but we are both that. When you're creating content and you put it out there for the world, like I don't delete old content.
No,
right?
No one does.
So I give the generalized advice of you should always be able to look back on who you were 5 years ago and at least be somewhat embarrassed. Wait, sure. I thought that. Wait, I wore those, like just that type of thing. And so I have people that'll discover my show. We're on like episode, 590 something. They'll go back to episode 1 and I'm like, oh dear sweet Jesus. Like what was I saying? Like I felt like I couldn't even read in 2017 when we started this. And they'll get mad about something from episode 11. And I'm like, hey man, I'm mad too, but I thought that at the time, and you got my stream of consciousness while I was recording on my $50 mic in my closet at my house, and that's just what I gave to you, and that's just going to be there. It's going to be there for forever. Now, if you ask me my opinion now on that subject matter, I might have, even though I hate the phraseology, a more nuanced perspective on that. I might have had some different life experiences that have informed my opinion a little bit differently on that, but it's out there. So I'm the type of guy that I still think about strikeouts that I had in high school and balls that I dropped in intramural football. Like I'm that type of guy. I just can't be that way with my content, and you can't really be that way with your sermons either. But I can sense that both of us are getting hungry for steak because that is what is waiting for us. So this is the last thing I want to talk to you about, okay? It's my favorite Matt Chandler moment of all time.
Wow.
Okay?
I'm ready for
remember,
this.
I've listened to all the sermons.
I'm ready.
I've read the books. I've done the things. Like I went from fanboy to buddy, but let's go back to my fanboy days, okay? When you went to Steven Furtick's church.
Oh, wow. We're doing it.
We're doing it. We're going there. We're going there. I don't even care if your assistant's saying, no, don't talk about it. Like, I'm going to block her out. Okay. All right. We're talking about it. So I don't remember do you remember the name of the event?
Code Orange Revival.
Code Orange Revival. So this was back in what year?
I don't even know.
Okay. Let's call it 2009, 2010, something like that. I don't have anyone in my earpiece that can give me the right answer. But anyway, it was back in the day.
Yeah.
And Steven Furtick invites you to come to this thing, and it's just like what you would do. You host as a church. It's like what Joby does with Saturate.
Yeah.
You bring in some heavy hitters that are kind of like your type of people, and they deliver a message to your congregation, and you're just there for it. And you go up there, and you melt Steven Furtick down around him, because he was awkwardly sitting in a chair on stage, which I thought was weird.
It was just packed. There was nowhere to sit. It was a full night.
Nah, he just needed everyone to see him. But anyway, it was nice of you to say that. But you get up there and you say the greatest line in the history of Matt Chandler, and it was you screaming at the congregation, "You are not David."
Yeah.
And the whole point that you were making, well, I'll let you talk about it, but the point that I took away is we read the Bible and we're looking for who we are in the story.
Yeah.
We think we're David.
Yeah.
We think our problems at work are Goliath and these types of things. And that's the Steven Furtick way of exegeting the scripture. If you can say exegesis is what happens at that particular church. This is what I'm saying. It's not what you're saying. So you can be careful and you can be diplomatic and all that garbage.
Need to be.
Okay. But it was my favorite moment because at the time, like I had read Steven Furtick's first book. He had come and spoken at my church. And when he started to lift weights, I'm like, that guy must have better words to say because his biceps are bigger. And so it's like, I was like potentially leaning in, and then you went there and it's like, no, you can't approach the Bible this way. You can't approach ministry this way. And I don't care who's listening. I'm here to melt things down. So I don't even have a question, Matt, but it's like, did they know what you were going to talk? Did you submit a transcript?
Here's what's funny about the Code Orange thing. One, I had met Steven at the Elephant Room with James McDonald. That's where I met him. I didn't know a lot about him. I had not read his book.
Right.
I didn't know a lot about elevation.
Right.
I really didn't. I had preached that exact message 3 or 4 weeks earlier at the Village. I mean, you heard me today.
Right.
I rarely, unless I get asked some sort of nuanced, can you preach on this? I rarely write new sermons for things outside the Village. My calling is to people at the Village. So even today's sermon was a mashup of some of Malachi series and some of Beyond.
Yep.
And then I contextualized it to the audience and went after it. And so I didn't, what's funny, the Twitter thing back then was it was just so not helpful. I did not go to Furtick's church to undermine him or attack him. I preached that. I didn't know enough. I swear I didn't know enough.
Okay.
And I know this is what Steven thinks. Steven still thinks. Like I had preached that message at the Village and the Holy Spirit just blew. And so it felt like fresh energy on that, like the Ghost was using that message. And so I had screamed, "You're not David," at the men and women of the Village Church 3 or 4 weeks before that. And so when they were like, what do you want to preach on? And I was like, I want to do Psalm 23. I want to call it God is for God. I just preached at the Village. The Lord's moving through it. They're like, praise God, come and bring it. And so I didn't even know I was getting myself in trouble. I swear I didn't. I would like to say this. I don't think I would, if I had a problem with Furtick, I'd have had to have that conversation with Furtick. I certainly wouldn't have used his own pulpit to undermine or attack him. And even after the fallout, I was trying to say, listen, get on the podcast. I just preached this at the Village. I didn't write it for Cordon's Revival. I wrote it for the men and women of the Village Church. And so there really wasn't ever, it's funny how this has just become like legendary. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that this, because I believe every word of that sermon to this day, but I didn't know until afterwards. I really didn't know until afterwards that, oh man, that's how he reads the Bible. That's how I swear, I did not go in trying to burn a guy's house down that he invited me into. And then I've got one gear. Like, I don't even, like, what'd you think? How'd you think I was going to show up? Whenever I've gotten in trouble on the road, I've been like, did you listen to me before I came?
So this is this is the town. So the beginning of that scene is Ben Affleck walking into his best friend's place and being like, hey, I need your help. You can't ask me about it later. I'll never tell you. And we're going to hurt some people. Well, whose car are we going to take?
Yeah.
So in the scene, they go and they beat up these two dudes and they pour drugs all over them so that if they call the police, they're covered in crystal meth or whatever. And then his buddy goes off all half cocked and like shoots the guy in the leg a couple of times. So Ben Affleck, when they got back in the car, was like, what was that? We're just shooting people now. And he's like, hey, you brought me.
Yeah.
And so that's like the ultimate you brought me moment. It's like, what, like, because I've gone places before and I've presented in my way and then people get somewhat offended. They're like, I just wasn't really a fan of your tone. I'm like, have you listened to literally anything I've ever said?
Yeah.
Like this is my tone and you're shocked by it. It's like going to a concert for a band you purport to listen to and you're like, I don't like any of this music. It's like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So are you going to go back if he invites you to another?
He certainly will not.
Are you sure?
I'm nearly 100% positive.
What if we could like maybe get a meeting of the minds together? Because I just want to see a part 2. That's it. I was like,
you're probably not going to see a part 2.
Maybe it doesn't get to happen to his church. Maybe we can do it at some other person's church. Is there a way that we could like set that up?
We actually, probably a year and a half later. So I got on the phone with him the next day. Like we could just feel something happened here. We were like, Lauren and I were super confused. I'm telling you, Lauren was like, I'm just optimistic. You know, Lauren's like, something's not right here. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, did you hear him? I was like, what do you mean? What he said while you were preaching? I was like, yeah, I heard. I thought we would talk about it at dinner, but we ended up not going to dinner with him. And then, man, nothing. And then they pulled the sermon offline, which is what made Twitter blow up.
Yep.
And then, and so I called him the next day, I didn't get him. I got his voicemail, and then hopped on the flight, flew home. He had called me back while we were in the air, and he was like, man, why don't we just go our separate ways? Why don't you go serve the Lord? I'm going to serve the Lord. It just probably isn't that you and I just probably aren't a good mix. But I don't really, so I just called him right back. And I was like, hey, help me understand what happened. And he thought I undermined him, and he thought I came there specifically to kind of subversively work against him and brought up some things. And I just kept going, hey man, I preached that at the Village. 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 Brought up some stuff from the elephant room. And I was like, no. I was like, if you remember, I did not come hard at you. It took James going, wait, now hold on for a second. Because he thought we were being too nice to each other. Yeah. And so he tried to provoke. And so I brought up a clip that I'd seen. You brought up a clip you had seen. And then that was the conversation. But brother, I am not showing up at your house and crapping on your floor. I'm not doing that. And then that was that. We didn't, we'd been texting a little bit before that. Like, cause here was the thing about like Steven would like text and go, hey, if you were going to teach on the favor of God, how would you talk about God's favor? And I'd send him some thoughts. We would just interact like that. And then all that stopped, of course, after that. And then about a year later, we were at the same conference together. And he came up and he said hi. He asked me how ministry was. I thanked him. I told him it was going well. Asked him how life was. Asked him about Holly. Asked him about the church. And it was cordial. And then I have not seen him since.
All right. Well, I think we should maybe do a second elephant room or a second one of those.
I wish somebody would, like, no one's doing that right now. And I just think it would be great to have a couple of guys that land in different theological places that have a brotherly relationship have the conversation theologically about certain things.
I think the closest we've gotten to that in modernity has been Justin Brierley when he does the Unbelievable podcast, which he's not doing anymore. So he's not doing those debates and things like that. I was on that show a couple of times, and I thought those worked out great. So we can talk about that a little bit more over dinner. But typically at the end of my interviews, I get through all my questions and all that type of stuff. But then is there anything else that you want to share with my audience before we go eat steak?
Yeah, I want men to step into their God-given calling. There is such high heights available to them. And where men go, the family goes, where the family goes, the culture goes. And we're in the mess that we're in right now, I think, because a large swath of men have abdicated the role that God's given them.
Amen.
And they've done it because they bought into the lie of toxic masculinity. And I get it, man. I get all the pressure and all the weight and but the pressure and weight is meant to make you stronger, not buckle underneath. And so listen, I don't care if you buy the book. I want you to, but I am so hungry for a renewal of biblical masculinity, self-sacrificing, Jesus-loving, vulnerable, fierce, deep. That, man, I'm grateful for what you do, and I'm hoping that in the next decade or so, and you're starting to see some reverberations of it even now, a quickening and awakening among men. But you will have to do the hard work. You will have to lean in. You will have to push past your fears. And all I'm describing right there is courage, brothers. And as we were talking just a little bit earlier, you'll have to lean into that first next step in pursuing that love relationship with Jesus Christ that's going to turn you into the kind of man you're so hungry to be.
I couldn't end it any better. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your ministry, and the guys of this podcast know how important your ministry has been to me personally in kind of developing my personal theology, but also I was put on this planet to equip men to push back darkness, and I can't do that without other fire-breathing lions like you and Joby and Piper and kind of the whole crew. So I just appreciate everything you've done for us, but I think it's time for dinner.
Come on, let's get some steak.
All right,
let's do it.
There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my interview with Matt Chandler. But before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted.Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. So I've got a link to his Amazon link for the book, The Overcomer. So guys, go and check that out. The Overcomer's God's Vision for You to Thrive in an Age of Anxiety and Outrage. I've got a link to all of his other books there on Amazon, so you can check that out. Also a link to the Village Church website and the Acts 29 website. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@undaunted.life. That's info@undaunted.life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.undaunted.life. And also, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.